877 NFL Kick, 877-635-5425 is our telephone number. Well, we were talking about the fact that the commissioner will remain the commissioner of the National Football League with a new contract, and it is with great pleasure that we welcome in the owner of the New England Patriots, Mr. Robert Kraft. Mr. Kraft, Bob Papa, Ross Tucker, how are you this morning?
How are you both? It's a pleasure to speak to you both in the morning.
Yeah, doing fantastic, Mr. Kraft. Thanks so much for being such a loyal listener. Before we get into Commissioner Goodell, just your excitement about the team being back in the Super Bowl yet again. It's hard to believe that you've been to 6 during your ownership.
Yeah, we've, I think back to the days of being a fan in the stands, and in the 34 years before we bought the team, there was one home playoff game, which we lost to the Oilers back in '78, and our season used to be over in December, and I just pinched myself that we were privileged to host our 15th home playoff game this past Sunday, and our guys came through. So my grandchildren are a little spoiled. My children aren't, but my grandchildren have an image that will be difficult to keep maintaining. But I'll tell you, this has been a very emotional year, and the kind of support we've gotten from the fans of this region and how the players have been supportive, having these 2 weeks of activity, and of course the Super Bowl is, it's my favorite sporting event in the world. And, I go to Wimbledon and World Cup, but there's nothing like the Super Bowl, and have the privilege of playing in it. It's very exciting, and especially in this year.
And it has to be, as you mentioned, such an emotional year with the passing of your wife, but the way your team, your players, have really paid homage to her throughout the course of the season and played with that spirit, it has to make you so proud.
Yeah, I have 53 extra sons this year. They have been so kind, and I don't know if it went national, but after we clinched the bye, the first, just being in the playoffs, they were kind enough to have an oil painting made, and with the spirit, I'm a great believer in spirituality, and with the spirit of my wife and the team, and Phil presented a game ball, and it was a very emotional experience, and I hope in some way it helped create even a bigger bond. I love our locker room. We are together. I think they all knew how much I love my sweetheart, and they've been great. So, it's been, and that's the thing that the general public doesn't know about football, because they, I remember Ross being in our locker room, and you got all these big behemoths, and people don't understand the game of football. My sweetheart was one before I bought the team. Their image of football players, they don't understand that these are men who have to be intelligent, that it's a team sport, that you have to subjugate your ego, that it represents, so many lessons in life, the sport of football. And my sweetheart got to learn the game and understand, how important it was to America. And it's a great game. And, part of the excitement is no one knows what's going to happen. And whether that's the quarterback, the head coach, the owner, any players, it's the brilliance of the game, and it's about a lot of factors coming together and putting people putting team first. Similar way Mel Karmazin has run Sirius, or any good operator has to run a business. It's so many great lessons in life, and I know we're really here to talk about our commissioner, and I'll just tell you, at the helm of our league. I don't think anyone would have believed that he would be as good as he is. You know, it would have been very hard to hire someone from outside and bring them in. And the fact that Roger trained so many years in the NFL, he understood the nuances, and his job in some ways is almost impossible because I liken it to a treadmill where the speed gets faster and the incline gets higher because you're dealing with 32 of us who, it's a board of directors, but it's a board where people think, it's pretty successful people in most part, and they have strong opinions, and he has to be a good listener and balanced, and the leadership he showed in helping us to get this labor deal, think about it, a 10-year labor deal with no opt-outs. And I remember we made a commitment to the leadership and the players that if they did that, they would be the biggest beneficiaries. And we went out and got these 9-year extensions with our TV partners, and the players are the biggest beneficiaries because they'll get 55% of the revenue. So, Roger took $1 in salary while we were negotiating, and the Lord knows how close we came to having a lockout for this season. And he took a big risk, and it's really good that we could create a sense of stability for the league and give him a long-term contract to allow us to build the business the way we all want, because now we have labor peace for 10 years, we have media contracts for 11 years, and we have stability and leadership at the top for the next 8 years. So I wish that would be a lesson to the people in Washington about, on both sides of the aisle, that you've got to put America first and show some leadership there.
Mr. Kraft, I was saying earlier that I believe by any metric or objective measure that Commissioner Goodell has been fantastic. But to me, it's not just the financials. I mean, as a former player, the stuff he did early on in terms of cracking down on the discipline and the stuff he's done with the brain trauma and the head injuries, the defenseless players, there are a lot of non-financial aspects of his job that I think he's handled extremely well so far.
Well, Ross, that's very astute on your part. I guess as someone who has to make a payroll, that's my first responsibility to make sure the business is financially sound. But you point out that he has, and as part of the reason the compensation committee was comfortable making a long-term commitment, that he's gotten ahead of this medical issue. I know I went to a dinner with him up here at Boston University with this Dr. Cantu, who I think is one of the experts in this whole area of brain trauma. And, we have a responsibility to the youth of America, too. And one of the things I've learned that, you know where the most concussions occur in what sport?
What sport?
You guys know that? I believe it's young gal soccer.
All right.
So,
youth soccer.
Youth soccer, female youth soccer. So, this whole area, and we, together with D. Smith, have committed a huge amount of capital to stay in front of that. And Roger really has led the effort in that and is very diligent. And the nice thing about the way we're set up now is that we can think long, as we like to do in any business our family's involved, where we can make the right strategic decisions in them. And the health issue, of course, is the heart and soul of our game. I mean, we're part of the appeal of the sport is that it's a physical sport and requires great discipline and study and execution. But unfortunately, part of the game is that we do have injuries, which and we have to be sure that our equipment does the job. It's funny. I was chatting with one of the young men in our locker room just about this yesterday, and he said, I won't mention his name because that'll be unfair, but he said, I like the old-style helmets just as I'm a traditionalist because the new helmets, I know they're safer and better, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it. And, that created a conundrum because really I said, we need you on the field and we need you healthy. And we don't want you getting a concussion. So, your health has to come before your appearance. But that's something, it's like whether they wear the knee pads or whatever. But you're correct, Ross. I know this issue is very important to the commissioner.
Mr. Kraft, another thing, I received a tweet earlier this morning from a Lions fan, and it's one of the things that I love about Commissioner Goodell is the fact that he's a real person. He does these town hall style meetings. He goes into the parking lot when he's visiting an NFL game on a Sunday, and he mingles with the fans. And I think that was portrayed in this tweet I got from a Lions fan this morning. He said he feels like the guy I could go have a beer and burger with. You work with him intimately. He seems like a man that also, as smart as he is, uses common sense and talks in real people talk.
Well, you're this Detroit fan, and by the way, they have quite a team out there, so they're going to have some fun the next few years because we played them in the preseason. And we saw how good they were, but that fan captured Roger. He sat up on our third deck, and he mingled with the fans. And the nice part is, as he's assumed this role of commissioner, I've watched him evolve over the last 18 years. He has stayed humble. He is a great listener. He really is a great memory, but he's a great listener. And he has the common touch of being able to get along with all kinds of people, which is a necessity in this business. Because, the owner, we owners are a little quirky at times. But he can relate to the common man. And that is, we're really lucky to have someone who's like that. I not only have a beer and a burger, you could throw in some crispy French fries, and you still have those too.
Hey, well, Mr. Kraft, last one for me. We really appreciate the time. Bob and I, during the lockout, we would have Albert Breer, tweeting about every owner and every representative that was coming to the various sessions. And almost without fail, some of the names would change, some of the faces would change, but it was always Bob Kraft and it was always John Mara. And so Bob Pop and I have been saying you really need to appreciate the irony that the two guys that seemingly were at every single one of those late-night sessions are the two guys whose franchise made it to the Super Bowl this year.
Well, that's kind, and John Mara played a huge role as Jerry Richardson, chairman, and so many on that committee, the whole committee. It was a real team effort, and John, his family, what they've represented to the NFL and how they've always put the league first. It's a wonderful family tradition, and we're honored to be playing the Giants. We've become great friends with the Tisch family as well, and we have great respect for those two families, and I think the fans of the New York Giants are lucky to have them as the custodian. You think about it, one family has been there, over 90 years or whatever. These things don't change hands. And when John spoke at these labor meetings, he has such a thorough knowledge of the nuances and the details of the game that he commanded great respect, and he's a fine gentleman. I'll always remember the eulogy he gave for his dad, which was just off the charts. So we're honored to be in the game with him. I know that, Ross, you're going to make sure that Bob is down the middle, completely neutral.
He always is. He always is.
You know I am, and that usually gets me in a little bit of trouble sometimes. But I like to call it as I see it. But Mr. Kraft, before we say goodbye, I would like to publicly just to give the fans a little insight into what a pleasure it is to have gotten to know you and the type of man you are. My first year at NFL Network calling the Thursday night games, we had the Jets and the Patriots in Foxborough, and you invited me into your office with your son, Jonathan, just to talk football, talk about the league, and talk about all the possibilities. And I want to publicly thank you for making me feel at home and feel like I fit in and I was in place. And that meant something to me that I'll always take with me, your graciousness from you and your son on that night when we sat in your office for about a half hour before that game. I really appreciated that, and I want the fans just to know that you care. Thank you for that.
Well, you're nice. I can see you sitting there in that chair on my left. I was looking at you, and we did have a great chat up there. I think you did a great job when you were doing that, and I think the Giant fans are lucky to have you to listen to. So thank you for the kindness, and you both be well, and let's have some fun this next few weeks.
We will see you in Indianapolis. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Kraft.
All right, be well.
We will. That's Robert Kraft, owner of the chairman and CEO of the New England Patriots, and he's an avid Sirius XM NFL radio listener, a Sirius XM fan. And wonderful stories about his team and how the rallying point with what his family has gone through this year and how they've pulled together. And as he said, I have 53 sons in there, and really is a marvelous story, and his influence throughout the course of the league and what he means for this league moving forward.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because he's a guy that is almost universally credited with so many different things in the NFL, with the CBA. I mean, even just, I'll never forget the image of Jeff Saturday and he embracing, as they stood there, and that was after he lost his sweetheart, as he says, Myra Kraft. I'll just never forget that, just how well respected he is and how revered he is, in the league office, amongst the other owners, amongst the players. And it's not a secret when people like that have success. I mean, there's a reason why this franchise has had a bunch of success. And, of course, now people will point to Belichick and Brady, but, they had success with Parcells and Bledsoe before that, So they've just had a tremendous amount of success. He's an awesome guy. I talked to him before a game this year on the field, and he said, I only used to listen to NFL and to Howard Stern, but now I listen to CNBC sometimes too, or something like that. One of the political channels, he said, he's like, I found a new channel that I listen to sometimes. I'm like, all right, well, as long as it's not from 7 to 11 in the morning, that's fine.
877 NFL Kick. We appreciate him spending a few minutes with us here on the opening drive on Sirius XM NFL Radio.